Ho Ho Oh No! Santa's Funniest Festive Fails by Elena Cosma. Santa's jet lag, when time zones became his worst enemy. Everyone knows that Santa Claus has the busiest job on Christmas Eve. Delivering presents to children all over the world in one night is no small feat, but what most people don't realize is that the real challenge isn't the logistics. It's the time zones. In 2009, Santa learned just how tricky time zones could be when they turned what should have been a smooth night of gift-giving into an epic tale of confusion, frustration, and a very grumpy Santa. The night started off as it always did, with the reindeer raring to go and Santa in high spirits. The North Pole team had fine-tuned the schedule, taking into account the rotation of the Earth, the exact time each child would be asleep, and even the weather patterns across the globe. Santa had done this a million times before, and he knew the drill. Start in the Far East, follow the night as it sweeps across the planet, and finish up in the Americas. Simple, right? But this year, something was off. Maybe it was the extra eggnog he'd had before takeoff, or maybe the elves had tweaked the flight plan just a little too much. Whatever it was, Santa quickly found himself in a time zone nightmare. It all started when he landed in Sydney, Australia, with the intention of dropping off gifts for the kids down under. As he tiptoed across the roof and slid down the first chimney, he was met with an unexpected sight. The entire family was wide awake, enjoying a sunny Christmas morning brunch. Ho ho ho, Santa stammered, looking around in confusion. The family stared back at him, equally surprised. Santa? What are you doing here? It's Christmas Day already. Santa's heart sank as he realized he was late. Not just a little late, really late. In his rush to stay on schedule, he'd completely miscalculated the time zone difference, arriving a full 12 hours behind schedule. With a hurried apology and a puff of chimney dust, Santa darted back to the sleigh, hoping to make up for lost time. But the time zone confusion had only just begun. Next, Santa aimed for Tokyo, determined to get back on track. But when he landed on a rooftop in the bustling city, he was greeted not by the calm of night, but by the morning rush hour. Traffic honked below, and as Santa peeked through a window, he saw that the children were already tearing into their presents that he hadn't delivered. What in the world? Santa muttered, realizing he'd overshot Japan's time zone as well. Panic set in. Santa quickly checked his list and adjusted the sleigh's course, this time heading for Paris. Surely he could get things back on track in Europe, right? Wrong. As the sleigh approached the City of Lights, Santa's hopes were dashed yet again. The Eiffel Tower sparkled in the twilight, but the city's children were still awake, eagerly awaiting their gifts. He was early. Too early. Santa had arrived in Paris before midnight, and now he was stuck hovering above the city, waiting for the clock to strike 12. Well, this is just great, Santa grumbled, leaning back in the sleigh as the reindeer circled aimlessly. I'm either too late or too early. Is it too much to ask for a simple, on-time delivery? The reindeer, equally frustrated, exchanged tired glances. Rudolph's nose glowed a little less brightly than usual, and even Prancer was starting to lose his enthusiasm. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, midnight arrived in Paris, and Santa was able to deliver the gifts. But by this point, the night had lost its magic. Santa was exhausted, the reindeer were grumpy, and the schedule was in complete disarray. As Santa flew from one time zone to the next, the pattern continued. He arrived too early in New York, too late in Rio de Janeiro, and right on time in London, but only because Big Ben's chimes happened to synchronize with his arrival. It seemed that no matter what he did, the time zones were out to get him. By the time Santa reached the final stretch of his journey, he was utterly drained. His usual jolly demeanor had been replaced with a frazzled, sleep-deprived version of himself. Even the thought of cookies and milk made him queasy. All he wanted was to finish the job and get back to the North Pole for a long winter's nap. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the last gift was delivered, and Santa slumped into the sleigh with a sigh of relief. "Thank goodness that's over," he muttered, rubbing his eyes. "I don't think I've ever been this tired in my life." The reindeer, equally worn out, nodded in agreement. "Let's get home," Rudolph said, leading the sleigh toward the North Pole. When Santa finally touched down at home, Mrs. Claus was waiting with a warm blanket and a concerned expression. "Rough night?" she asked, handing him a mug of hot cocoa. "You have no idea," Santa replied, collapsing into his favorite armchair. "Those time zones were out to get me. I spent the whole night either too early or too late. It's a miracle I didn't end up delivering presents to next year's kids." Mrs. Claus chuckled, patting his hand. "Sounds like you could use a good night's sleep." "More like a good week's sleep," Santa grumbled, taking a sip of cocoa. "I'm never trusting those time zones again. Next year I'm sticking to the old-fashioned way, just following the night and hoping for the best." And so the tale of Santa's jet lag became a legend at the North Pole, a cautionary tale about the dangers of overcomplicating even the most magical job in the world. It was a reminder that sometimes, no matter how hard you try, time zones are just impossible to wrangle. But as always, Santa persevered, proving once again that even when Christmas goes awry, the holiday spirit always finds a way to shine through. Discover the mishaps, giggles, and chaos of Santa's wildest Christmas adventures, available now on Amazon. Story Adventurers Club series, buckle up. This adventure is just starting, and you won't want to miss it.